fact, a groundbreaking study has proven that patients with almost zero residual kidney function actually have a longer life expectancy on a very low protein diet compared to being on dialysis. These patients were able to live for years using only a carefully managed diet and 4 specific vitamins. Why then are CKD patients still being started on dialysis every single day? And will big dialysis even let me talk about this at all?
This is the real world, and you need to wake up!
Catherine here. I'm a doctor of natural medicine and I have been helping CKD patients for more than a decade now.
I want to thank Miss Catherine because of you. You saved my kidneys. Over here in America, a lot of doctors just don't care about their patients. And I'm going to give you a list of things I did that took my kidneys from 54 to 98.
It's not uncommon for my videos to be, hidden from YouTube because I talk about controversial topics. And today's video is going to be even more controversial than usual. Today I'm asking the big question: when will dialysis stop being treated as the only solution for advanced CKD? Some of us hoped the conversation will change after this revolutionary study was published. This randomized, multicenter controlled study examined CKD patients with a GFR below 7. Yes, you heard that right. 7. And found that they had a better survival rate on a low protein diet than on dialysis. So, patients only following a diet lived longer than those on dialysis, even with almost no residual kidney function. And yet, here we are. Patients in stage 5 CKD are still being rushed into dialysis as if it's the only option on the table, even with a kidney function more than double than the patients we are looking at today. Let's talk about dialysis because today I want to be completely transparent about it. I'll admit, there was a time when I was strongly pro-dialysis. After all, it's life-saving, and I used to recommend it to nearly every patient with a GFR below 15. But here's the thing, that recommendation wasn't just something I pulled out of thin air. It's what the clinical guidelines for CKD management tell us to do. And that means many doctors are still operating under the same advice today. So let's break this down. Patients with a GFR below 15 are routinely advised to start dialysis not because they necessarily need it at that moment, but because it's what the guidelines say. And here's the result. Many patients are started on dialysis years before they actually need it. Yeah, that can happen to you or to a loved one. Because there are probably hundreds of thousands of CKD patients out there that are doing dialysis right now with no benefit at all. By the way, I'm not the one making this statement. It's a very large clinical trial published in the New England Journal of Medicine that's saying this. And this is just one of the many studies proving that the later dialysis is started, the better. And yet, patients are still started on dialysis prematurely every day. So, the question is, how do you make sure that you don't end up in dialysis years before you need it? Yeah, this is the question I want to answer today. In order to do that, we will take a look at the study I was mentioning earlier. In this study, they tested a diet called sVLPD, or supplemented very low protein diet in patients with a GFR below 7. And the results were absolutely incredible. Or, as Big Pharma calls it, a direct threat to our profit margin. Okay, wait. Let's slow down a moment. I want to make sure everyone understands why treating patients with a GFR of 7 using a diet instead of dialysis is such a big deal. For those of you who don't know, a GFR above 60 is normal kidney function. A GFR below 15 is classified as end-stage renal disease or ESRD, where serious symptoms are common because your kidneys aren't filtering well anymore. And a GFR below 7 means your kidneys are, well, let's put it this way. With a GFR of 7, your kidneys are filtering about as well as a dollar store coffee strainer. This is why typically when a patient's GFR drops below 7, dialysis is considered essential for survival. Or is it? In this study, 112 patients with a GFR between 7 and 5 were randomly divided in two groups. One group was started on dialysis. The other was started on a very low protein diet to which they added certain specific supplements. Researchers called this a sVLPD, or supplemented very low protein diet. With this approach, end-stage patients were not just able to avoid dialysis, in some cases for years. They were also able to live longer on average compared to those patients that were started on dialysis. Let me repeat that. Patients with a GFR as low as 5 to 7 were able to survive longer and in some cases thrive on a specialized diet and supplements without the need for dialysis. I mean, can you imagine that? That's like flipping the bird at the system that's ready to slap you with monthly dialysis bills, right? This is why today I will examine how the diet they are implementing works compared to a normal renal diet like the one I'm used to prescribing. We will also see the 4 essential vitamins you need to make this approach work. Don't miss that part because these 4 vitamins could make all the difference in your journey. Now guys, in the world of kidney disease, it has been a fact for years that following a low-protein, plant-based diet is the best strategy to keep or even improve your kidney function. This diet is a LPD or low-protein diet, and it's safe in all the stages of CKD. And it works based on a simple principle. The less the protein you eat, the longer your kidneys are going to work. Easy as that. And usually patients can follow a low protein diet with minimal supplementation, just a renal multivitamin, and by eating normal everyday foods. Of course, you won't be eating meat, fish, and cheese. But when I prescribe a diet to a patient, I always try to include as many of the foods they are used to eat as possible. However, this approach works when you still have some kidney function. What they did to help patients with a GFR below 7 survive was more extreme. We are talking very low protein diet here. And to achieve a very low protein intake, avoiding meat, fish, and dairy is not nearly enough. Anything remotely containing protein must be excluded. First, no legumes in a VLPD. Legumes are a rich source of protein. Same for nuts and seeds. I believe with a VLPD, you may only be allowed to eat a tiny amount of seeds per day. Now, the big issue when going from a low to a very low protein diet is grains. Fact, with CKD, you are supposed to get most of your daily calories from whole grains. rolled oats, barley, buckwheat, bulgur, amaranth, brown rice, even whole wheat bread. These foods should be where most of your daily calories come from. However, these foods are also going to be where most of your protein comes from, alright? Which is like saying oats are your best friend when your GFR is 20, but they are off limits if you need to avoid dialysis with a GFR of 5 to 7. Now, I didn't mention oats by accident here. In fact, rolled oats are an amazing food for people with kidney disease. They are amongst the healthiest yet lowest in protein food staples you can find. They have a similar amount of protein per 100 kilocal to white bread, and just white rice and potatoes are even lower. Now, these you see here are some of the staple foods that are lowest in protein, making some of them ideal for a renal diet. However, if you had to follow a very low protein diet, most of these foods would be forbidden. So question, what can CKD patients on a VLPD eat? Well, first of all, upper-type food staples. What are upper-type food staples? Foods such as zero protein pasta, rice, and bread that contain basically zero protein. Yes, even lower in protein than regular pasta and rice. And this is important. These foods were key to the survival of the patients in this study. Because remember, a VLPD is all about getting enough calories without getting too much protein. This is why upper-type food staples have been used in countries such as Italy and Japan for decades now. Brands such as Aperten, Flavis, or Loprofin do make special pasta, flour, and bread specifically for people with kidney disease. And while here in Italy, you can basically find these products in most pharmacies and even in some supermarkets, you will still have to buy them online. If you are in the US, in Australia, and in most European or Asian countries. But they are not impossible to find, and well, they can really help. In fact, staple foods are those foods we base our diets on. For people with kidney disease, there is no doubt that grains and other carb sources should be the cornerstone of the diet. And most whole grains are fine as long as you are following a low protein diet and not a very low protein diet. Question: what other foods are compatible with a very low protein diet? Okay, now at this point, you may be wondering, how is it possible to survive on just, upper-take pasta, bread, and cookies? Well, actually, they didn't have to do that because, you see, there are many other foods that are compatible with a VLPD. Many vegetables are low enough in protein to be had daily. Cucumbers, radishes, lettuce, bell peppers, tomatoes, celery, and more. These are usually safe for anyone. Now, fruit is even better. Fruit is generally even lower in protein than vegetables, and with the exception of avocados, coconuts, and in some cases, high potassium fruit. These patients were able to eat any fruit they wanted. But of course, when the goal is getting enough calories daily without adding protein, oil is your best friend. Since the study was conducted in Italy, I believe these patients were literally drenched in olive oil. In Italy, if your salad isn't like 50% extra virgin olive oil, they fine you for blasphemy. But what's more important is that, these patients weren't only relying on proteic foods to survive. And here's another interesting part of their diet. In this study, patients were allowed 2 cheat meals per week in order to help with compliance. So let's discuss compliance for a moment, because this is a serious issue. No diet is going to help you if you don't allow it, right? And of course, the stricter the diet is, the harder it is to get people to follow it. And as we have seen, the VLPD is a very strict diet. It has nothing to do with the diet most people follow to, lose weight, and it's even a lot stricter than the renal diets I prescribe my patients. Because, If you are a patient of mine, you may have heard me yell at you something like, "No, I don't care, your firstborn son just got married. I said no fish." And I mean it. But you see, these researchers were much more relaxed about cheat meals than I am, which is interesting in my opinion, because while I never really believed in cheat meals, this approach clearly worked for them. I mean, their diet is making dialysis redundant, right? And that must mean something. Now, I can't find this in the study, but I believe that even the cheat meals were somehow restricted. Yeah, I don't believe these patients were eating at McDonald's every Tuesday and doing a mukbang every Friday. So question, how were these researchers able to make sure the test subjects weren't still eating at McDonald's every other day? Well, by monitoring certain lab values very closely. As we can see, if a patient starts to eat a lot more protein than prescribed, their blood urea nitrogen and serum phosphate levels are going to skyrocket. This happens because these protein foods are full of nitrogen and phosphorus, two of the worst toxins for your kidneys. What this also means is that we can monitor those two levels to see if a patient is actually reducing their protein intake. Now guys, I could spend hours talking about the renal diet these patients are following, but I won't. I mean, not today. So, if you want to dig deeper about what foods protect the kidneys, my video up here is for you. So, time to look at the supplements that these patients needed in order to avoid dialysis. In this study, they only used 2 supplements. Let's see what they are. First of all, 4 specific B vitamins, and all of them in very high doses. Vitamin B1 or thiamine. This one was probably used to reduce lactic acidosis and maintain energy metabolism. B6 and B12 are used to fight anemia. Managing anemia is crucial for survival in stage 5 patients, and these vitamins can help. Now, B12 is also a vitamin you cannot get from plant-based foods, which means that every single CKD patient should supplement it. Last thing here is B9. Vitamin B9 or folate is very helpful in order to manage homocysteine, especially if taken in combination with B6 and B12. Now, high homocysteine is a problem in CKD because it's linked to increased oxidative stress and inflammation, aka faster kidney damage. We don't want that, and I believe this can explain why these vitamins were prescribed in mega doses. Now, I do not personally recommend any vitamin in such a high dose unless a deficiency has been observed. Not even B vitamins, and it's not just because I don't want my patients to freak out when they start peeing neon yellow. I mean, can you imagine that discussion? Don't worry if you start to pee nuclear waste, it's just the elephant dose B12. No, I don't do that, but I do recommend a renal multivitamin. Renal multivitamins are very useful for CKD patients. Following a renal diet because you will get all the vitamins you need and none of those vitamins that could be dangerous for someone with CKD. Okay, moving on, the other supplement they used in this study, probably just as crucial as B vitamins, is a ketoanalogue supplement. So question, what are ketoanalogues and should you take them? These are a special type of amino acids that patients are supposed to be prescribed when they follow a low-protein diet. And since apparently we can't just say special amino acids for desperate kidneys, ketoanalogues is it. Gotta give it a fancy name, right? Now, not everyone is taking ketoanalogues, and for most patients, it is not a problem. In fact, most patients eat more protein than they should, and this supplement doesn't really help in that case. On the other hand, those that are following a diet that's very strict and very limiting when it comes to protein will really benefit from ketoanalogues. Just like in the study we are examining today, supplementing these special amino acids when on a very low protein diet really helps avoid the risk for malnutrition because it's not the protein in meat that damages the kidneys. It's the phosphorus and nitrogen this protein comes with. Ketoanalogues can give you the essential amino acids from protein but without any phosphorus and with very little nitrogen. There are a few brands that sell these amino acids, including Fresenius and Albutrix. Now, these are prescription supplements, and if you think you need one, talk to your doctor and get a prescription. Maybe for ketosterol from Fresenius, which is the most widely used keto analog in the world. Now, you can also buy a keto analog without a prescription. In fact, Albutrix sell their products online and you can get them to most countries in the world. However, not all patients need these keto analogs, which is great because they are pretty expensive. Unless, of course, they are following a very low protein diet or if they are having signs of malnutrition such as a low serum albumin. Now guys, if you want to know more about supplements that can save your kidneys, my video up here is for you, and this is all for today. Thank you for watching. God bless you all. Bye-bye.